Hello, everybody. I'm Sean Reynolds from Sportsnet, about to be joined by Ken Wiebe from Sportsnet on a night where we will have a lot to talk about. You know, I wasn't expecting it. I know some people in the chat room were talking about a trap game last night. If any of you are in there right now, raise your hand or maybe stand up even and take a bow because you called it. I thought that's exactly what we saw here this evening. I also like to start the show with great comments when I see him, and our main man, Tristan Rivers, who, again, for those of you who don't know, is responsible for all the great music that you hear on the Kenny and Renny show. The Oilers are so good. They beat the Jets back-to-back nights when they weren't even their opponent the second game. The Jets had too little gas left after that playoff-like OT game on Thursday night. I think Tristan is hitting it bang on with that. Jets, I tweeted out before, with about 4 minutes left in the game, that I thought the door was open for the Jets to make a push. They did. Closed the gap to just one, and came very, very close towards the end of the game to tying that out. Like we've seen this team do so often. We know they're dangerous. I'll have some thoughts on why they're so dangerous, and it's not necessarily what they do, but I find what other teams do against them. But before we get into that, we got to bring in our main man. I teased you with some of the great music that we hear on this show done by Tristan, and let's hear some of it right now as we bring Ken Wiebe into the show. Ken Wiebe, my friend, it's an after dark or after hours, whatever you want to call it, version of Kenny and Renny as we get started the show after midnight, like we did so many times last year. A couple times we took her pretty deep. I think we went till 3 a.m. one time last year. I can tell you, I'm not doing that here tonight. I got the kids out there. They're having a sleepover. You may hear some kids hollering in the background. I'm not going to be able to put that or pull that off, because at some point I think I'm going to have to go throw the kids into a sleeper hold and get them down here. But Ken, take a look at the game here. I think right off the bat, our chat room, which is always, right on top of things, really, really getting, to the heart of the issue. I think this one by Tracy Okranek touches on something you and I were talking about before we came onto the show here. PK, an absolutely huge factor in this game, as it has been for the entire season. Something the Jets have, it's been a problem that they've been able to erase with the other part of their games, but it cost them here tonight. What did you see on the Jets penalty kill that is leaving Jets fans wanting?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a struggle. There's no two ways about it. And I mean, has it been better at times of late? Sure. I mean, but this is the part that we understand where Paul Maurice is coming from, and he's trying to be as positive as possible, but they don't get the opportunity to erase the 10 goals they gave up in the first 5 games while shorthanded. That's part of the deal. They've had slow starts on the penalty kill several times now in the last couple of years from what I can recall. So have they done a better job at times? Yes, but it cost him the game. I mean, and he had basically admitted that today, which, I mean, you have to, because that was the difference in the game. 2 power play goals and 3 opportunities. And as Adam Lowry pointed out, if you're around 60%, that's not going to cut it. So I like the fact that Paul Maurice left the door open for saying they may have to switch some people around. And you know what that means for me, Sean. If you're switching some people around for the penalty kill, I have a suggestion. That player had 2 goals again. He had 2 goals last night. He has 12 points in 15 games, and the Moose have the 4th best penalty killing unit in the American Hockey League. And I know one of the most important parts of that unit is David Gustafsson. So
put on your bus driver hat, Ken. You're back driving the bus.
I'm going to tell you that the Gus bus, I don't know if you hear the engine revving, but I think that you've got that piece of the puzzle is something that, I don't think it was necessarily it wasn't necessarily meant to be foreshadowing from Paul Maurice, but I think that there's a chance that the bus is going to be leaving the station fairly soon here. I could be wrong, but I think it would be something that's worth investigating. And I think that, I was talking about this with Dwayne Gilowaychuk the other day on the way into the rink. And to me, Sean, we talked about this before. Some of the benefits to having Gustafsson playing 20 minutes a game, it's important for him to build that foundation in the baseline. But I don't think at the same time you can leave him in the minors until game 50 or 60 and then all of a sudden say, oh, hey, now there's not enough time to get him enough experience. The Jets' penalty kill is clearly struggling. Mm-hmm. We know that David Gustafsson has that tool in his toolkit. We know that the fourth line is not playing a whole lot, and there have been some shifts where they've generated a little bit. David Gustafsson is a smart player. He can make the guys around him better. I think he can help the fourth line be more effective at both ends of the ice, and he can help the penalty kill. So I would like to see him at some point in the near future. Outside of that, the Jets kept the best power play in the NHL off the board completely the one night before. So yes, they have had some times when they've been better at it, but they cannot allow 2 goals tonight in 3 opportunities to the Vancouver Canucks. I don't want to get onto a refereeing rant. I think there were some plays missed. I don't think it was a very well officiated game by either gentleman for either team in general.
Which one are you talking about? What's your
I think there was a goalie interference that could have easily been called. There were a couple of I think
I know which one you're talking about. I don't agree with that. I don't
think he was pushed in, Sean. He had nowhere to go. He didn't try to get out of the way. I'm not saying that was an obvious one. There were some other plays where it was Myers or there was a tripping here or there. There were just a couple of things in general. Ehlers got hauled down one time around the net. And again, that's not why the Jets lost. The Jets lost because their penalty kill was not good enough. And their finish wasn't good enough. And one of the reasons was they ran into Bubble Demko, who has not made a whole lot of appearances this year in the Vancouver net. He was outstanding. He was exceptional. And the Jets couldn't convert. But for me, the penalty kill needs to improve. It needs to improve quickly, and I think changing up the personnel and adding David Gustafsson, or at least giving him a chance to see whether or not he can do the job, would be very close to the top of what I would like to see happen in terms of trying to get that solved.
Take a pause here, Ken. I want to ask you about Gustafsson, but first I want to Kyle DeDure, who I've seen him giving a couple comments here. I know that the chat room is taking care of this. I think Kyle may be new. But yeah, if you're new, you stumbled on something that all the Kenny and Rennyites know out there, that the music on our show absolutely rocks. And it's Tristan who does all the work for us here. And so if you're new here and you haven't heard this before, Kyle, let's bring in Sean's headband, Ken, and make this a Sean's headband version of Kenny and Renny.
There you
because
go.
If we're talking about songs that rock, let's bring up another one. Here we go. Here comes Sean's headband. Loving this from Rob Mahoney, the Tristan Rivers Power Hour. That's exactly what it is. Loving it here. Thanks, Kyle. You're discovering what everybody out here who's been watching Kenny and Renny knows. Our music is top notch, and it is all Tristan Rivers doing the job. Phenomenal stuff. Ken, I want to get back to the point that you were making about David Gustafsson, because to me at this stage, there's no compelling argument for him not to be on this team, unless the belief is that this team is better constructed without him on the team. Do you know what I'm saying? To me, I do know what you're saying. Yes, I don't look at it and I say he can spend more time down in the minors. He can do this. He can play more minutes. All of this kind of stuff. I took a look at a night like tonight, and I do think the Jets didn't want to say they're tired. And this is one of those things where you shouldn't, and typically you won't say you're tired, because if you're a team that falls on that excuse, then to me, you're exposing yourself for every time you play a back-to-back going forward, right? You can't rely on, yeah, we got tired, and let that seep into the consciousness that you get tired on back-to-backs.
Right.
So they can't do that. But I mean, to me, they weren't anywhere near as aggressive as we've seen them in their successful stretch, on their successful home stretch that we saw there, or even against the Edmonton Oilers last night, in containing Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl as much as they did. Aggression and being on the puck and trying to force those turnovers, to me, is the key to the Jets game. And on nights like tonight, when they don't look aggressive, that's where it comes in that I think that they're tired. But the point I'm trying to get to, Ken, is on a night like this, where I thought that the third line may have been the Jets' best line on the evening, the fourth line wasn't given an opportunity to make a difference in this game. And
in the first period and a bit, I think they had a regular shift, but
a bit, but and I get that you get behind and then you got to score your way back into the game. But listen, if you need energy, there should be a consideration of sending those guys out to try and say, hey guys, back to back. I know you didn't play a lot last night. I know you're fresh. We need you. This is the message that you send to try and get every single guy on your bench engaged. In order for us to win and be the team we want to be, there's going to be nights we're going to need to turn to you. And so we're turning to the fourth line to eat up some time, so that when the idea, Ken, isn't that you're going away from your first and second line to try and score your way back into the game. The idea is that the fourth line is going to go out and put an imprint on that game, allow those players to rest and get more quality minutes in that game from your first and second line. So to me, it didn't make any sense not to go there. And if you don't believe in that line enough to go out and have them give them significant minutes on a night like tonight to try and allow them to affect the game, then why, to your point, why is David Gustafsson not here to try and give him the opportunity to take the minutes and try and help you win some hockey games?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I can't be any more clear here. I thought David Gustafsson should have been in the mix in training camp, and I didn't see anything in training camp that would suggest he wasn't ready, outside of him not being given much of an opportunity with NHL-ready players. I mean, he played mostly with American Hockey League guys, which told us kind of where he was in the pecking order to begin with. I love, this is what we talk about all the time. It would have been disappointing for David Gustafsson when you put yourself in a position in your headspace where you're trying to make the team. It can be very easy for some players who are not mature enough to go down and not give everything that you possibly have. After being the MVP last year, David Gustafsson has gone down and been probably one of the best, if not the best, Moose player so far, at least Moose forward. So that's how you handle your business. So to me, David Gustafsson is a person who makes people around him better. Right now, there has not been much offensive production from the fourth line. So to me, Gustafsson can help them right now, today. He may help them more later on if he spends a little bit more time, but I think the time has come to try and give him a shot and see if he can help give the penalty kill a boost and give the fourth line a boost. So let's there's a lot of topics we want to get to, and
Sure.
I want to first and foremost, this is a poor take by Jets Scheifele. I mean, Eric Comrie entered the game with a 3-1 record and a sub-2 goals against average. Was there one? I mean, the Ekman-Larsson goal, I didn't really get a good angle at it. I mean, he may have been screened to a degree, but to suggest he's been awful in his 5-game stretch is a poor take, in my opinion. He's been very steady. Not only steady, he's been very good. So there's nothing awful about it.
Well, I mean, go through the goals tonight. I mean,
Right.
One is a redirected Nate Schmidt
Off the skate.
that's along the ice that goes upstairs and off the post and in.
Right.
And then we've got Connor Garland's goal, which is all the time in the world to absolutely load up and pick a spot. He picks an absolutely perfect spot. I'm drawing a blank on the first goal of the game, but
shot. Point shot from Ekman-Larsson on the power play that I'm not sure if there was full of traffic or not. Yeah, I think there was traffic. So,
well, and
that's just a bad take.
He shoots it through the defender's legs,
right,
and perfectly picks the corner. I mean, you know what? I'll maybe give him that he he could have picked that one up, because I've heard a lot of goalies say, when I used to play with goalies, I had a lot of goalies tell me to try and get in front of pucks at a certain point, and then at that point to try and get out of the way of them, because the goaltender would say to me that if it's a long distance one and you redirect it and I still don't pick it up and it gets by me, that's on me. And that's probably a goalie preference thing. But
you could tell by the way he responded.
There's nothing. I mean, I don't know who's stopping those two goals 2 and 3 of the game. That was not on Eric Comrie in any way. In any way at all.
The Garland one especially, 3 guys caught on one side. I mean, it's just not it was poor positioning, and Garland had all day long to wind up and go, with a great shot. I mean, to me, Comrie's reaction after the first one suggested that he didn't get a good look at it. I mean, he wasn't pointing blame or pointing fingers, but he was like, man, I just didn't see it. I mean, that's what I saw.
How'd that go in the way it did?
Anyway, so here's the other part too. I mean, we talked a lot, Sean, in the last couple of days about how the Jets had their 1A and 1B lines really kind of rolling at times. That was not the case tonight. A little bit uncharacteristic.
Okay, hold on. We'll get into that in just a bit. We'll dig into that in just a bit. I just wanted to bring this up because I wanted to talk with you about this. Jeff Cabiles, who's on the show all the time. Garland goal, someone missed an assignment. I don't agree with this because this to me is an example of, we've talked in the past about the Jets kind of playing a really aggressive style that is a risk style, but they take very calculated risks and they work out really well. But when it doesn't work out well, it can be a real all or nothing kind of thing. The Jets in that play are building a fence. The puck is in the corner and they build a fence with 4 players, expecting that the puck is not going to get through, but it does get through, and that's what happens in the Jets system. I think just get used to this. This is what you are going to see all year from the Jets. The kind of opportunities they're going to give up are 2-on-1s from the blue line, from their own blue line heading down the other direction, and plays like that, because the Jets' idea is to shut off the other team's offense before it can get started, cut it off, like get in front of the baseball right when the guy is making contact kind of thing, rather than letting the ball travel and get somewhere. But when you don't block the puck, that's what ends up happening. And I just thought that was one of those plays where, Ken, you've heard me say it before, the Jets are a little bit all or nothing in their defense. And that, to me, was a perfect example of their all or nothing style, and just trying to stop the puck at the starting point of it just entirely breaking down. What'd you see?
Well, I think the Garland one where you had Pionk and Dillon kind of got, both defensemen were along the same board. So to me,
right.
It was a power play goal. It wasn't a pinching issue, right?
It wasn't a pinching issue, but the idea is the way that they set up their power plays. I don't think they get mismanaged and caught out of place. I think all 4 goal guys are in there. The puck's in the corner. They're swamping the puck in the corner and trying to give it. The only option is to either throw it around behind the net or throw it up to the boards. They're trying to make the boards the only option there. And then once the puck goes in a specific direction along the boards, they disperse from there. Instead, the Canucks get it through the fence that they've built, and then that's what happens in that situation. That's just what I'm saying. I've seen this, and listen, let's put my theory to the test for the rest of the season. To me, that's what the Winnipeg Jets defending looks like. It's all or nothing. When it works, they're just cramming the puck back on the other team, turning pucks over, keeping teams in their end. But when it does not work, it looks like big opportunities. 2-on-1s, players getting the puck with all kinds of time. That to me is what the Jet system is about. And when it falls down, that's what it looks like.
Yeah, to me, it was just a little bit more of a mist. I mean, I'm totally fine with them being aggressive, but I don't think that it's in their structure to have the second defenseman join unless he's 100% sure. So to me, I think it was more of a missed assignment in terms of what happened in the play along the boards that allowed Chason to come loose with the puck and feed it across. But yeah, I'm with you that the aggressive nature is not going to end. I just think that structurally, I don't think that would be one of the places where they would be saying to attack at in that scenario. But I mean, things happen at a pretty quick rate, generally speaking. So,
but that's the point, is things happen. So when you do make mistakes, that's what the mistakes look like.
For sure, but
I'm not saying they played the play perfect. I'm not saying Paul Maurice is going to look at that and be like, that's exactly how I wanted them to play it. But that aggression leads to guys being, when you're aggressive and things fall apart on your aggression. When it's not executed perfectly, that's what it looks like.
Yeah, but there's just not a scenario where you would have both defensemen along the boards to abandon the guy in front of the net. I mean, even if you have forward support in the slot, I don't think that there would be many times, unless the guy's turned and you're 100% sure you can get it. I just think it was a play where the read wasn't right.
Yeah,
and there was a structural breakdown.
Totally agreed. Okay, so let's now get into what we got to get into here, because this is going to be the biggest topic of the day. It's trending, but let's get into what we're seeing from. Let's get into it this way, Ken. 6-on-5 at the end of the game. The Winnipeg Jets pushing to get back into the game. They send out 6 players as they pull the goalie. They score as Pierre-Luc Dubois gets a fortuitous bounce off of his back foot, redirects into the net, and then they come out and they almost score to tie the game. What was the most surprising thing to you about the Jets 6-on-5 that maybe you haven't seen in some time?
Well, what surprised us was who wasn't on the ice, and I think that that was a statement. I mean, Paul Maurice would never say that it was, and I think there were 5 forwards that were going stronger than Blake Wheeler was tonight, and that's why Blake Wheeler was a spectator rather than a participant. I don't recall the last time in a game that he was involved in that he was not thrown on the ice in that scenario because of his passing ability. So the fact that it was Ehlers getting that chance and Andrew Copp, I think that was I think that was a statement made by the head coach. I think I was a little bit surprised. I texted you in the second intermission. I thought it was probably time for Yevgeny Svechnikov to go back, something that you've been calling for a couple days. I thought that would have been a time to maybe look for a little bit of offense. The team was down by 2 goals. Blake Wheeler had some strong shifts with Adam Lowry in the past. I thought, yeah, you got me. You turned me. It's like wrestling. You turned me into a heel on that one. I thought that it would have been a time to go to the blender. And again, it's not a knock on where Blake Wheeler is. It's just a simple fact that Svechnikov has had some offensive success with those guys. Blake Wheeler took a penalty that he would probably be the first to tell you that he cannot take. After Nikolai Ehlers scored that goal, the Jets were pressing, trying to get some momentum, and offensive zone minor was taken when Blake Wheeler was in a chase position. So that's something that can't happen. I mean, it does happen once in a while, and it wasn't flagrant, but stick got up and the penalty, and it was a costly one. I mean, if the Jets kill that off, it's not a big deal, but the fact of the matter was that the goal was scored, and it sort of allowed the Canucks to the Jets were, looked like they might be making a push, and then they kind of pushed them back. So I'll be fascinated to see how this goes. I know you have a lot of thoughts on this, Sean. To me, I've said this to you before, and I am going to say it again. I think that when Paul Stastny is back at practice, on whether that's on Sunday or when they go to the morning skate on Monday, provided he skated like Paul Maurice thought that he would, I think we are going to see Blake Wheeler and Paul Stastny together, probably with Adam Lowry, the next time that those guys are in a game, and that we'll probably also see Svechnikov move back with Dubois and Kyle Connor.
I think this, and I'm going to ask you a question after I bring this up. Luke Armbruster says, why does Wheeler get such a longer leash than Stetch on the top line with no results? I mean, I'd ask the question like this, and you've kind of touched on it in the fact that you think that that's what we're going to see. And my thoughts on it, where I just don't think that with a line going the way that top line was with Svechnikov, like they shouldn't have been touching that line. That line, I think, had worked enough. You had to at least give that line a couple games of things not going well before you decided to break it up. I don't think that happened, and I think that can be problematic. But, I mean, you're talking about a bad penalty taken by Wheeler that you're saying, I think he'd never admit it to us, but, if you had him behind the scenes, he'd probably admit that it was a bad penalty. But you're talking about a player that in the 3 games that he's played here on the top line, beside, the 2 best defensive players on this team so far this season, his offensive production in that time has been 1 assist, and that assist was on an empty net goal. Now, I pose the question like this. If this was Evgeny Svechnikov in that spot over these last 3 games with that level of production, because yes, Ken, you brought it up the last couple of games, and I do agree with this. Blake Wheeler's been good on the forecheck. He's been a big body. He's moved things around. But to your point as well, Evgeny Svechnikov has shown that he can do that on that line and has been doing that on the third line since they moved him down there. So he's shown he can do that as well. But after taking a penalty like that, and after the offensive production that we've seen from that line, if the roles were reversed and that was Evgeny Svechnikov's production these last 3 games, would he not be a lock to be taken off that line at this stage?
Sure, but I mean, we know the reason for that. One player has a 14-year career body of work that he's working off of, and the other guy has not played 65 NHL games. That's why. I mean, that's why he has a longer leash. And I said this also about Svechnikov. I love the way that he's played on that Lowry line, and he's given that line an identity that has been lacking to a certain degree this year because of the way that the line has been used. So, yeah, I mean, like I said, I know where you're coming from, but I have no problem with Paul Maurice trying to find out if he can work in that role, if he needs to use him there, and he did, and that line was effective. So now I'd also like to see them try to go back to it. So I think we are in agreement on that front as well, but we know how it works. I mean, Travis Green said this yesterday. I mean, when he was being bombarded with questions about Elias Pettersson, not all players are treated equally. That's life. I mean, that is part of life. It doesn't matter if you're talking about the NHL or whatever level of hockey. I mean, certain players have a longer, leash, if you will, and most times that leash is deserved. So I don't think that we can just be all up in arms. We can be, but I'm not as up in arms over that as you are, and I'm okay with that. That's okay. To me, I think the Jets are trying to find some things out. I think that trying to get Blake Wheeler going was not a bad idea by Paul Maurice. It did not have the desired result in terms of trying to spark the offense. So now try something else. Try Blake Wheeler with Paul Stastny. He's had success with Paul Stastny before in his career. I think he's had some success with Adam Lowry. And check out that line, see if they can get going. I think we would all agree that Blake Wheeler is not going offensively right now. And he's not, I thought he skated quite well on Tuesday, Thursday, okay, but not as well. And tonight he wasn't skating well, which is not a surprise at the back end of a back-to-back when you consider how much energy was exerted in those prior 2 games. But I think there was a missed opportunity in the third period to give a promotion to Yevgeny Svechnikov for his strong play. Kyle Connor wasn't as noticeable today. Unfortunately for him, breaks his stick on the one-timer. Otherwise, that was a good one by JM Sue there for sure. But that line was not as effective. I mean,
you are coming around to what I've been saying the last couple of days, and she's saying I'm wrong and that you're right 100% of the time. When you are coming around to what I've been saying the last couple of shows.
Oh no, Julie, that was put up way earlier. That was put up way earlier. That was put up way before Svechnikov, buddy. Check the timestamp.
Put up at 12:55. It's 2 minutes ago she said this. Julie,
no, that one was before.
Julie, you're my girl, but come on, don't do me like that. Anyways, Ken, finish what you were saying.
No, it just, it's going to be, these things are evolving. And like I had said to you, but my understanding from that reasoning is that it's not just about finding out what you can do in game 17. It's what you may have to lean on when it's game 60 or if it's game 70. So test out a few things. See where it goes from there. I got to get a drink of water here. Sorry.
Really? Okay. I'm going to say just before you go so you can hear this.
No, it's good. It's good.
Oh, I thought you were getting up to go to the sink. I take umbrage with being up in arms about this. I'm not up in arms about this. Here's where I'm trying to get to with the point of this entire thing. On a night tonight where I thought that the third line had juice, right? They went out and I thought that they looked good. Jensen Harkins looked fast. Adam Lowry looked powerful. They looked really good out there. And I'll say this because I'm going to say, and I go back to this, when I talk about Svechnikov, I think whatever Svechnikov did, it worked with Kyle Connor and Pierre-Luc Dubois. It worked. I'm not saying that for a second that I think that Blake Wheeler is a lesser player than Evgeny Svechnikov. In fact, what I'm saying is that third line, despite the fact it had juice, that line to me hasn't shown that they're an offensive threat. And here's the problem with this entire thing is before the move was made to put Blake Wheeler on that top line and split everything up, Nick Ehlers' line was scoring alongside Andrew Copp. Andrew Copp was the second highest scoring player on the team, and he was on the second line. Pierre-Luc Dubois was the third highest scoring player on the team. Kyle Connor, also on the first line with Pierre-Luc Dubois, was at a pace he'd never achieved before on a line with Blake Wheeler and Mark Scheifele for most of his career. And then you had Blake Wheeler and Mark Scheifele and Adam Lowry on your third line. And while they weren't necessarily producing, they were a threat to score quite often in those games. The Jets had 3 scoring lines. And the moves that we've seen made here have taken the team and put them into a top-heavy, top 2 lines, and created a third line that, while is a line that can go out and grind and lean on teams, it's not as deep of a team offensively. That's the issue. And the reason is because Evgeny Svechnikov, I think that Blake Wheeler, to your point, potentially you would want to see him on a line with Lowry and with Paul Stastny, because that line, I think, if you're going out and putting them up against third or fourth line competition from other teams, is going to catch those lines and is going to put some pucks in the net. I don't see that happening as it currently stands with Jansen Harkins and Evgeny Svechnikov and Adam Lowry. That's the issue. The issue is in an effort to get Blake Wheeler going. And to me, this isn't about Blake Wheeler. I know a lot of people are going to get upset and they're going to say that I'm saying that. That's not my point. My point was something that was working was broken up to take something that wasn't working and get it working. And I don't think that should be that, especially when you're winning. Why would you ever do that? What team does that, Ken? What team, while winning, breaks up something that's working to address something that's not working, but that you're getting past and winning anyway?
Sorry, I have the same argument with this, Sean. I mean, Svechnikov was fine on that line, but he wasn't dominant. So I understand what you're saying about stretching out the depth, and I think that
Svechnikov... the line was dominant. The line was dominant.
Right, but the belief of the coaching staff, based on the decision that they made, was that the line would not be any less dominant by making the switch. So it didn't turn out to be that way in terms of the production, but that their point was the drivers of that line were those 2 players. And as we've talked about, the thought was that they could still have 3 scoring lines if Svechnikov was going to now be the trigger man. And I think they generated plenty of offense in last night's game against the Oilers, and they had some nice chances today. So have they all been rolling at the same time? No, you're right. I mean, it had been previously working a little bit better with the other configuration. But testing some other things out while you're going well, I have no problem with that. I don't think that's an issue at all.
I do. I don't understand the idea.
Svechnikov has 6 points, Sean. It's not that he has 14. Or I love the way that he has played.
How many times did Paul Maurice break up Blake Wheeler, Mark Scheifele, and Kyle Connor when things were going good for that line? You wouldn't do that.
Svechnikov is not at that level of player yet. He may grow into be that kind of player. He is a support player. He's a support player.
Agreed. And the support that he provided to that line was allowing that line to be one of the best lines in the NHL this year. And that's my point is it's the whole. I'm not talking about Svechnikov. I'm not saying for a second that I think Evgeny Svechnikov is one of the best players on this team and deserves that spot. I'm saying that unit deserved to be left alone to continue doing what they were doing. That's the point. This, to me, is not about Evgeny Svechnikov. It's taking and respecting what Pierre-Luc Dubois and Kyle Connor and Evgeny Svechnikov had accomplished together and giving them the opportunity to continue doing that until they stumbled or something didn't work anymore. I couldn't agree with you more. I'm not saying for a second, and you are right. The reason that move is made is because Blake Wheeler has a pedigree of showing that he's a better player than Evgeny Svechnikov, and in cases like that, if it's a clear-cut choice and you have to make a choice between one player or the other, I have no problem with the coach making the call with the guy that he knows. The issue is a choice did not need to be made. A choice was forced.
This is, again, back to what we talked about yesterday. I think this relates more to the pace of play and having to go against Connor McDavid. When you have a guy that has not gone up against him, I think there was less of a comfort feeling from the coaching staff We always talk about putting people in positions to succeed, and Svechnikov has succeeded very well. And I'm not arguing that he didn't deserve the chance to have the opportunity, and he's going to get the opportunity, I believe. But I think the coaching staff was more comfortable having a player with more experience in that position against an elite level player. And I think that Svechnikov handled it very well, and I think that it's time to go back to it, right? I think we're arguing the same thing. I'm not as hardcore as you, thinking that under no circumstances should they have tried to break that up. Blake Wheeler has not been getting things going offensively, right?
That's my point. You got it right. Yeah.
They're trying to get Wheeler going, because you know what? If the Jets want to win a couple of rounds or make the final, all of those things, they need Blake Wheeler going. So if you're looking to get a guy going, you put him with the guys who are going the best. That's why they did it. There's nothing. You're right. You said it. Paul Maurice was quick to say it. It had nothing to do with how Svechnikov was playing. It was not a knock on his game. I don't think that Dubois and Connor are saying, "Oh, I mean, what are you doing taking our line mate away here?" But I mean, part of the deal, and they kind of move on. And I'm fascinated to see how this turns. And we know Blake Wheeler's a very proud guy. He's not going to be thrilled about how these games went. Nobody would have been more pissed off than him about the penalty and having the goal scored against them, right? I mean, right now I think Blake Wheeler he's pressing a little bit because it hasn't been going as smoothly.
Yeah. I think we are arguing the same point. I think we have been this whole time. I think we arrive on things. You touched on it. Like I'm a real big believer in just like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
I hear you.
And I'm really, really against, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Don't fix it to try and fix something else that's broke. You know what I mean? Like I think there's something to be said, Ken, about the idea that Paul Maurice could say, we're going to leave that line going because it's going. We're going to address whatever we're doing on the second line. But I've got enough faith in Blake Wheeler that I don't need to doctor or gerrymander the situation to get him going. This team is going. We're succeeding. They're taking care of things. Take your time, Blake. I know you still have it in you. I know you're going to get there. And in the meantime, I'm just going to leave you in this spot and you're going to get going. And that's what's going to happen. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Right. And that's what I think. I think there's a confidence that you are showing in that player by saying that, rather than taking and like I said, moving the situation to try and force something or try and spark something. Have confidence in the player that he's going to find that spark on his own, because to your initial point, he's found that spark time and time again in his career. If anyone is going to find that spark, if you just leave him alone and give him the time and breathing space to do it, it should be Blake Wheeler. Anyways, we should move on. I want to talk about Brendan Dillon because it was brought up earlier.
Yeah.
What a game. What a game by Brendan Dillon. Just what did you see from him tonight?
Yeah, the physical we knew he was going to bring a physical nature to the team, and it was not a knock on Derek Forbort. He's a big, strong guy. He played physical at certain times, but this is just a different level of physicality, right? He gave Connor Garland a rough ride along the boards. He's leading the Jets in hits. He has been a guy who has fit in so well in terms of his personality, but he's starting to get into a little bit of a rhythm. I thought the first game against the Oilers was exceptional for that pairing. The second game, there were some up and down moments. I thought again that pairing was very good again today. And this is a guy who's going to get better as the year goes on because his comfort level is going to continue to grow. And I think that pairing will continue to read off one another. They both play a very aggressive style. They get engaged physically. And, that's what the Jets had been lacking. What were we talking about coming out of the play-in round game in Edmonton, Sean? What were we talking about? The Jets defense corps didn't have enough of that stiffness on the back end. Right now, they have a lot more of that. And Brendan Dillon has been a big part of that. There's no doubt about it. And having that size and physical nature, but he can still get up. He still can move. And I think he's done it, he's a good penalty killer. And he's going to get better as the year has gone on. But he's fit in so well on so many levels, and I also think he's gonna get a little bit more and more comfortable. I think he's the kind of guy, Sean. He's already starting to get his feet underneath him and get comfortable. he's the kind of guy that flourishes in games 60 to 82. And then when it really matters, when the playoffs start, that's when you're going to see the best version of Brendan Dillon for me.
He's back at home, right? And it sounds like he spent
playing for free tonight. Playing for free.
Yeah, that's what the boys on the broadcast said. He was gave away his salary tonight just to put all his friends and family in the stands. And boy, oh boy, did he ever play like it. That two plays where a player had a direct path to the net, he tracks them down and not only shuts down the play to take away kind of any danger. But boy, oh boy, that time the way he finished, and I forget who it was, but he knocked him down, and then they went into the boards, and he just like crushed him into the boards afterwards. Garland, who's a feisty guy, and I know there's a size difference there, but I love that idea, the idea of punishing the other team, because what I think those players walked away from was it went from them thinking right off the bat that I'm just going to think about the net. I've got a little bit of a break here, to getting smushed into the backboards. The next time they're going down, I don't think they're as clearly thinking about the direct, path to the net and potentially scoring. I think they're looking around to see if someone's coming to catch them, right? And I just thought that Brendan Dillon has just been absolutely phenomenal, completely strong, was punishing players. I love the style with which he does it. He does it in a way that is respectful of the game. He comes in, he talks to us all the time, Ken. He's the nicest. He may be the nicest NHL hockey player I have ever met in my life. He strikes you as, like it's almost like a, if you're teaching AAA kids to have, like 16 and 17-year-old kids to have like a really good positive attitude, demeanor. Be respectful, that demeanor. It's like he got that and then took it to the NHL and never added in the NHL kind of, attitude, but has all the swag that comes with it. Do you know what I mean? And I just think I love how he does it. I love how he's in guys' faces. I think he's the kind of guy who can break you on the ice and then pat you on the back after the game, and you've got no problems with the guy. You know what I mean? And yet at the same time is the guy who like kind of steps in like, your cool uncle who, like, if you're messing with my guy, okay, I hate to do this to you, but I'm going to have to dust him off here. You know what I mean? He's just, everything about him, I think, adds to the dressing room, adds to the team on the ice, adds to this kind of invulnerability that the team may be able to feel and play with. Because I said it early in the season, one of the concerns I had with this Jets team was their level of grittiness. I'm not saying grit doesn't exist. Logan Stanley is a guy who has that element, and clearly I'm talking about Brendan Dillon having it. I don't know how much of that is around the entire roster, but a guy like Brendan Dillon allows every guy on that roster to borrow a little bit of that toughness. He's that tough, and I think he just has such an impact on this club.
And he comes right at you, right? This is not a guy who's a dirty player. He's not, he's not getting you from behind. He's not giving you a dirty shot when the ref's not looking. Like, he says, I'm coming for you. I'm gonna bring a body check, and you know what? Great. Let's, afterward go crush a beer after. You're right.
Totally.
I mean, he plays hard, but not on a. I don't think there's a dirty bone in his body, but he's also willing to mix it up, and that's something that's really important on the Jets' back end. And again, this is a guy who, look at the defense partners he's had. He's played with John Carlson, he's played with Brent Burns, he's played with Erik Karlsson. Yes, we know he broke in with a guy like Dylan DeMello, but he's had to scratch and claw for every single thing that he's got. And to me, the fact that the Jets have 3 of those guys on their back end is incredibly important, because that demeanor and mentality for Neil Pionk, Nate Schmidt, and Brendan Dillon, there's no entitlement in their game. When you're an undrafted free agent and you go and work yourself into a top pairing or top 4 role, you carry that with you. And these guys never forgot where they came from. And I think that attitude, or lack of an attitude, has really been a really nice touch, and it's really helped. They're fun. You can tell that people enjoy being around them in the way that they play and the way that they conduct themselves.
Yeah. Let's get to Scheifele's line. I want to know what you're seeing from Scheifele over the last since this change has been made. Because I got to say, one of the who was it? Someone with the NHL Network had held up a stat last year about Mark Scheifele leading the league in passing plays broken up with his stick. It was like a really, really specific, obscure stat, and that got me thinking, because I saw it happen tonight a number of times, and then it made me think of times that it happened over the last couple of games and how active his stick is. And there was one play where he had shut off a passing lane, and the player went to pass it way behind him, and he did one of those turning away from the direction the puck was coming from, no look, one-handed play, stopped the puck right on the tape of his stick and turned up ice with it right off the bat. And I just thought, boy, oh boy, that is one thing that he is one of the best in the league at. And then when I looked at takeaways from last season, he was tied for 7th in the league with takeaways. I'm seeing that element of his game return and be on full display right now. So that part of his game is going. He's starting to get the points going. I thought that the goal that he sets up tonight from Pierre-Luc Dubois, again, it's a bit lucky. It bounces off his leg, but it's lucky because Mark Scheifele sees a crowd there and puts the puck to a danger zone. I thought it was a smart play from a guy who often can fall into the trap of trying to be a little bit too precise and maybe wouldn't have made that pass in the past because he'd be looking for a specific stick, right, to put that in off instead of just throwing it into that danger zone. I think Mark Scheifele is starting to make a lot of the right plays. He doesn't look to be costing this team defensively. His game is really coming around, and I wanted to get your ideas on what you thought his involvement on that line has done to Nick Ehlers' game.
I love the way that this line is played, Sean, and we can check the receipts and rewind the tape. I mentioned the possibility of these guys being put together because I wanted to see this version of Ehlers and this version of Scheifele playing together with Andrew Copp as the safety valve / guy that has really been helping other guys get going when they've been looking for some offense. 5-game point streak for Nikolai Ehlers, and I don't think it's not an accident. These guys are playing incredibly well together. The one thing I think I texted you during the game also about this. I know I send you so many messages that I can't remember which game it was from, but I talked about going into this week after the weekend with the extra day to get Ehlers a little bit more time to get his legs going, and same for Scheifele with the Charlie horse. Both players, their powerful and explosive strides were on display during this week of games. Ehlers absolutely flying. I know someone was saying about the Jets not going to the middle of the ice. I disagree with that completely. Ehlers was getting to the middle of the ice with great frequency. I loved what I've seen from Scheifele. And the other part about having Andrew Copp with them, not only is he taking those faceoffs, but it's allowing Mark to kind of attack from that left wing side at times, right? So when Copp takes the draws on his strong side, sometimes you've seen Scheifele on the entries and things of that nature where he can be really dangerous as both a shooter and a passer. I love the fact that they added some speed. Like we talked about this before also. Same as Kyle Connor is pushing Pierre-Luc Dubois to be using his feet and getting his feet going. Same for Mark Scheifele and Nikolai Ehlers. Both of them are such powerful skaters that they're pushing each other to push the pace. And it's really tough for the opposition to defend. And Andrew Copp is doing a really excellent job with that line as well. And I think it also says a lot that Paul Maurice kind of resisted the urge to take one of those guys off the line to maybe put with Dubois and Connor on a night where they weren't generating quite as much offense. I think that's how well that they've really played together. And I think that there is some, in a good way, but there's some internal competition there in terms of getting the ice time and getting those pre-minutes. I mean, tonight I think Nikolai Ehlers was 19:45 or so of ice time. That's good for him. I mean, I want to see Nikolai Ehlers around that 20-minute mark. Could he get a little bit more? Sure, but I think that line has really been flying, and I think that they're sort of just starting out. I think that they have even more potential to get even better because of the qualities that they bring to the table together.
Jeff, my wife, says the same thing. She's outside the door right now being like, how can you still be talking about this? We'll talk about it all night. We'll go till no,
Easy
we won't go
now,
till 3
easy
in the morning.
now.
Sorry, I started to get to the season.
We've had a really good
version
week.
of
We've had a
Kenny
really
and
good
Renny.
week, but yeah, exactly.
We should get I drained myself from yesterday. I took naps this morning. I was so tired from what we got into. Hey, here's something. People brought it up and talked about Andrew Copp and his production kind of sliding a little bit. I'm wondering if you think okay, I'll ask it like this. Is there anything that you see in the explanation or of what's happened with that line that maybe Ehlers is going and Scheifele is going, and Andrew Copp, sensing those things happening, has maybe scaled back to make sure that he's the defensive presence on that line? Or another way of saying it or asking it, Ken, is has Andrew Copp slid into a role that he feels that line needs to allow it to succeed, and in doing so sacrificed the offense that he'd been producing at the beginning of the season?
Not for me. Obviously, he's going to be the most responsible player on that line. He's almost always the most responsible player on the line, whatever line he plays on. And, so to me, I don't think that really has changed. The Copp backhand chance was really solid. I thought he had a couple good looks from the slot today. I don't see there being really I don't see a dip in.
He had a great shot. He had a
Right.
great opportunity and shot, yeah.
So for me, I don't really see him being in a deferring role. I see him showing confidence to make plays with two really skilled players. And one other thing too, you can't ignore it. The Jets are, they had no power plays today. They're 1 for their last 16 on the power play. Andrew Copp is a guy who has been very productive on that Ehlers unit on the power plays. So I think that the fact that the power play is not really rolling right now has impacted the totals to a degree. But I have no concerns with the way Andrew Copp's playing. And I know you weren't saying that's not what you were suggesting.
Yeah,
but if some other folks were back to the whole, Andrew Copp doesn't need to be playing in the top 6. No, man, the guy's playing great. He's been a point-a-game player.
I thought I prefaced.
No, you did. I'm not saying that you said it.
Here. No,
I'm
I
just
know
saying
you're
that
not
other
saying it.
people.
Roscoe is saying here, give the guy a break. I'm not saying that one bit. I think
he's playing great.
I think Roscoe, I know you've been on the show the last couple times. I've been raving about the Mark Scheifele line. I gave them entire credit for going in and shutting down Connor McDavid's line, and then doing the same thing the previous night to Leon Draisaitl's line. They've been producing points every single time. Nick Ehlers can't miss that top corner. I don't know what you're listening to if you think I'm harping on the guy. The guy's been doing absolutely phenomenally. Has he been putting up the points he hadn't been doing so, or he had been doing so before? No, but he's part of a line that I think has been the best part of the Winnipeg Jets team, and has surpassed at this moment Pierre-Luc Dubois and Kyle Connor as the best line on this team. So, Roscoe, take it down a little bit, bud. Just we're not taking shots at anyone. Don't worry about it. Ken, pick up
6 shots on goal and 8 attempts for Andrew Copp tonight. So to me, he's very involved offensively with that line. So I've loved the way that he's played.
Yeah. How about, we touched a little bit on Comrie, but what did you see from Comrie tonight?
Yeah, I mean, he hasn't played in basically a couple of weeks, right? So
yeah, that's what I kind of wanted to get to. Is I don't think he let in a bad goal tonight. I don't fault him for any of the goals that happened tonight. I do think, though, he didn't look as strong and maybe calm as I saw him in the past. I don't think it had an effect on tonight's game, but I did have the thought, especially earlier in the game, of maybe he's been out of action a little bit too long. Although, hey, you're the backup goaltender, you better get used to it.
Sure, I would say he did not look quite as precise and sharp as he did when he made 3 consecutive starts, right? I mean, that's natural. This is a guy who's been able to get into a rhythm during most stages of his career, except for his nomadic stage where he was bouncing around organizations. But when he's been with the Moose, he's always been able to get into a rhythm. But as you mentioned, Sean, I mean, the Jets still have 9 more back-to-backs, including 1 more against the Canucks next month, where they start in Seattle. So Eric Comrie knows what his assignments are going to look like, and when Connor Hellebuyck is in the zone the way that he is right now, you got to find a way to be sharp after the other guy has 5 consecutive starts or whatever the number is. So I thought the Comrie played fine. I don't think that he looked nervous, and I know that's not what you were suggesting.
Yeah.
I think that maybe there was early in the game he might have been, I wouldn't say fighting it, but like fighting to get to the position where he was comfortable. And I thought he looked comfortable during the course of the game, and I thought he made some important saves. But I mean, it wasn't as smooth as some of the other starts were, but I think that was more to do with the penalty kill. I think that allowed 2 goals again. Like I said, I thought that Comrie was fine. The job of a backup goalie is to keep your team in the game. That's exactly what Eric Comrie did. I mean, in a game where they were down, they pushed, they got a late goal, and they still had a chance to win that hockey game. And part of the reason was because Eric Comrie played sufficiently well enough to do so.
I'm just gonna. I know you talked about this earlier in the show. You gave your opinion on this. I wanted to close out my opinion on it because I don't think I ever got there with it. A lot of people asking about that goaltender interference call. I didn't think it was goaltender interference. The reason I didn't is because I think the puck comes across and Eric Comrie moves this way to challenge, and the player moves this way to occupy that space, shoots the shot, and the momentum carries him into the goaltender. Now, did he kind of try and throw himself out of the way? Well, we know Jets fans didn't expect Mark Scheifele to throw himself out of the way with Jake Evans last year. Not that I need to go to that hot place there, but like, it's one of these scenarios where it's like they both were challenging for the same space, I thought, and because Comrie was well outside of the blue paint, 2 to 3 feet outside of the blue paint, and you know what? If they had just let that go, and if Neil Pionk doesn't give a cross check to the back once he's made contact, which I think forces him further onto Comrie. I think if he continues through Comrie in that state and Neil Pionk doesn't give him the cross check from behind, I do think it's a call. But I just think there was too much of the combination of goaltender out of the crease, both players challenging for the same space that kind of comes out of nowhere in the play, and then getting the push from behind by the player. In that moment, I think, could it have gone the other way? Sure, it could have gone the other way, but I think there was enough going on there that the refs looked at it and didn't think it was a call in the moment. Again, we got to get to the idea that these refs are calling this all in real time. So I didn't have a problem with that call. I know a lot of people did, especially on a night where the Jets weren't able to go on the power play. Which really, I mean, I can understand people being upset about that, Ken, because that could have made all the difference in the world in this game, right? Because that was the difference in the game, was the Canucks power play. So having an opportunity, and basically with the Canucks being as lost as they are, we never got to see their penalty kill. We know their power play was supposed to be atrocious, but quite often I think what you see is when you've got teams that look to be lost in the woods, the way that the Vancouver Canucks look to be coming into this game, you'll find that their special teams are just god-awful and atrocious. And so who knows, one opportunity on the power play is probably all it would have taken for the Jets to maybe, author a different outcome in that game.
Yeah, and I mean, the other thing too, we have to always remember, I mean, I totally understand why fans think that the Jets are always going to just team struggling. Yes, we know that. They're talking on the West Coast about firing everybody, and you think that maybe the team's not going to show up. Well, guess what? These guys have pride. They don't want to play on a bad team. I mean, that's what, they had to rely on great goaltending. But I mean, when you go into a game and one of your best players starts the game on the third line, that's a wake-up moment for Elias Pettersson. He got knocked off the first power play unit and started the game on the third line. At which I love the fact that they put a worker bee like Jason Dickinson on that line. That line has been struggling. Besser and Pettersson have not been producing. So good. Do something and go from there. Pettersson drew a couple penalties. He got involved. That's how you want people to respond. But I mean, the Jets have had points in 13 of the last 15 games, Sean. Their only 2 regulation losses are in the back end of a back-to-back. That's not an excuse. That's a fact. If I had told you the Jets were going to rack up points in 13 of 15, you would have said they're off to a great start, which is exactly what they've done. And that's the thing, right? I mean, and I'm not making excuses for them, but that's the reality, is they're putting up points in games. But it also reinforces what we talked about last night. This game was going to be tough for the Winnipeg Jets, which is why they needed to convert on that 4-minute power play, because then you're going home and thinking, well, guess what? They had 4 to 6. Now, 3 to 6 is okay. But if they find a way to convert on that power play, now today you can write that off and say, we didn't have the same kind of legs, even though they still generated, 40 plus shots, which is impressive. And that's the other thing, Sean, that I want to mention. These aren't just bomb shots from the outside. Everyone, what did we talk about all last year? Jets can't generate enough chances. On a night where they were playing back-to-back and didn't have their legs, they had 16 shots in the first period, 17 the night before. I mean, the Jets are generating an awful lot of quality chances. So that's something that they're going to feel good about. Again, structurally, 1 5-on-5 goal allowed. It was a seeing eye single from the point that went off a skate. So in the last 2 games, the Jets have given up 2 even-strength goals. That's impressive, right? That is impressive. That is the foundation that we've talked about, and that But it also doesn't mean that you get to take it. They don't get to take a deep breath and say, "Oh, no big deal." When you set that standard, now you have to hold yourself to that standard, because now guess what? The Pittsburgh Penguins are coming into town, and then the Jets are going out on the road for a 3-game trip that includes another back-to-back.
Yeah. Ken, you talked about it and the good start that they've had. I'll say this. The one thing that I kind of find is fascinating when I look at the standings is as good as the Jets have been, they're now, tied with the Minnesota Wild, who have a game in hand now, though, atop that division. Now, with the loss tonight, they opened the door for the St. Louis Blues to hop up with them there. The Nashville Predators, I took a look at what they've been doing the last couple of games. I think they're 7-2-1, as are the Colorado Avalanche, who won big tonight. And I wonder about a win like that and what it does to get that team going. Their head coach, who was given an extension, Jared Bednar, today after that game said, we're back to being a contender. That's my pick to go to the Stanley Cup final at the beginning of the year. Your pick is the Vegas Golden Knights, who are up and running again now and are picking up none other than Jack Eichel before it's all said and done, very likely before the end of the season. The thing that I found is fascinating about all of this, Ken, is as good as the Jets have been, everybody else is right there, and the playoff line is nipping at all of their heels. It's absolutely fascinating what I've seen so far. And of course, teams like, Anaheim are a part of that. And even LA, who's out of the playoff picture after a couple of losses, but who knows what's going to happen with them when Drew Doughty comes back. But and the Calgary Flames. The Calgary Flames, who, remember, Ken, we had this conversation before the beginning of the year. I'm always like, I never know what to expect from those guys. It's almost like they go out and they totally make a believer out of you one year, and then they fall flat on their face, and then you stop believing in them, and then they come out and they make a believer out of you again. It's just like, you know what? It seems to be year to year with that team. Well, they're back on an on year and looking really, really strong and playing that Sutter system that is going to make them tough. That's my rant for the end of this. Ken, do you have anything to say before we move on?
No, fun week, and we got a lot accomplished. Had a lot of fun chats, some great debates, and was happy to get a skate in this afternoon too. So that kept the joy level high.
I'm just going to say, since we're closing out the end of the week here, Ken, on a week where the divorce lawyer showed up, the marriage counselor showed up, I have never felt closer to you, my friend. The fire that we have between us drives us together, not apart. And
keep the passion flowing, buddy. Keep the passion flowing.
Keep it flowing. Hey, we need to do it because we need to be able to keep up with our chat room that always brings the passion. One more?
2 quick ones. I'm sorry. We had a couple of comments about Sam's scarf in the chat room. We are happy to report that Sam's scarf will be back on the show on Wednesday night from Columbus, where Sam, Sean, and myself will all be in the building at Nationwide Arena for the Pierre-Luc Dubois return to Columbus, and that's going to be a lot of fun. And last call, we mentioned it yesterday on the show, If you have any mailbag questions for the November Jets mailbag, don't hesitate to hit me up on the old DMs or at kenjr@shaw.ca. Articles going up on Sunday. So last call to get those in on Saturday.
You know what I love about Sammy coming on the show? One is that he came into the city and hopped onto the show twice in a row, but that this one, he asked, can I be on the show? Like we didn't have to ask him. We didn't need to track him down. Sam knew we were coming, and he wanted to come spend time with all of you and with us. And why not? Sam absolutely loved being on the show, said as much, had so much fun, and it's because all you. Thank you so much. One last thing you can do for us, if you liked what you saw here, go to our YouTube channel, make sure you click like, and if you haven't subscribed yet, I don't know what you're waiting for, get to it. But thank you so much. Over 100 of you still rocking with us at 1:35 a.m. in the morning here. I can't tell you how much both of us appreciate that, but thank you so much, everybody. We will see you after the next game.